Hello and welcome. The Uposatha day has been and gone. I think it's Thursday already, and the full moon was Wednesday, but the Uposatha was in most places on Tuesday. And it is the time we have the opportunity to reflect. The Buddha said to his son Rahula, "What is it? What is a mirror?" And his son's reply was for seeing our reflection. And the Buddha said, it is thus we reflect upon our SILA. And on the Uposatha, checking a coconut wasn't about to fall on my head, but this isn't coconuts, so we're quite safe. There are these big fruits though. If a coconut did fall on your head, I think that would be the end. One fell yesterday in the little grove behind where I'm staying, and it hit something, and it was like a gun going off. Such a bang. Anyway, we reflect on our SILA continuously, really. As one would look in the mirror to check your appearance is okay, we should be reflecting on our SILA. And no better time to remember this than on this Uposatha. In terms of monastic life, for monks and nuns, we have the opportunity to recite the Patim Moka, all of our rules. If we are with the rest of our Sangha, even if we're alone, we have a little ceremony we go through of purification, of recognizing any wrongdoings or variances on those SILA, those precepts, of which monks we have 227, nuns 311, and we have this opportunity for reflection. But of course, in monastic life, living this life of purely SILA, samadhi, panya, with little else to trouble us, to distract us from that practice, we should have a continual process of reflection. And it is largely the body of those rules, the ones we recite in the Patim Moka, which are only a small a part of the overall Vinaya, the rules for monks and nuns, which number thousands. These are the salient ones, the important ones, which help us keep the core precepts, which are much like those of a lay person. No killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, or taking of intoxicants. Of course, as monks, we are celibate also, as the third precept. You can, and I encourage everyone, if they can, to, on occasions, if not regularly, take an opportunity during the week, maybe not on the Uposatha, because of course that follows the lunar calendar, so it isn't always going to be on a day when you are not working, but on your usual day off, if you have to at the weekend, maybe take one of those days, even a part of one of those days, to try and keep 8 precepts. The reason being is the additional precepts are not so the additional precepts are the third precept changes to celibacy. The 6th precept is you do not eat in the afternoon. The 7th is you refrain from entertainment, beautification and dressing up. And the 8th is you don't, sleep in a luxurious bed is how it's usually described. But you could use this to include sitting around on the sofa or in comfortable chairs, should you be employing this exercise within your day. Which is a good opportunity to really just have a way of just sitting on the floor in your living room rather than on the sofa for your practice, for your meditation, but also whatever else you may be getting up to in the day when you're preparing your vegetables. If you're going to keep 8 precepts on that day and just eat in the morning, early in the morning, rather than sitting at the kitchen table peeling your Brussels sprouts, sit on the floor with a bowl in front of you. It's a little more uncomfortable. It's not what you're used to. But this helps you reflect. It's part of renunciation, because these additional precepts are not moralistic. It's not morally wrong to listen to music or watch entertainment or even have sexual relations. It's not morally wrong to eat in the afternoon or to sit in a comfortable chair or sleep in a luxurious bed or dress up and wear perfume and beautification. These aren't morally wrong. These are just some additional sacrifices we make as part of our progress towards renunciation, not to become monks or to ordain or for a lifetime's commitment, but to clear our decks, to clear the path for the perfection of those 5 precepts, which is what I encourage everybody to try and do. Without the purification of our lives through these 5 precepts, we cannot be expected to progress with our samadhi, with our meditation. And therefore, we cannot be expected to develop panya, wisdom, this reduction of unwholesome mind states and the increase of wholesome mind states. Wisdom. Wisdom, knowing through our practice the feel for the Four Noble Truths, not just knowing it intellectually, the words, actually understanding this very evident fact of suffering. If you take the 8 precepts and you're not eating in the afternoon, at about 4 o'clock you might get a little bit hungry, and just see this, recognize this as suffering. Also apply it to your knowledge of the world. There are many people who go for days and days very hungry. I'm very fortunate. I'm fed every day so kindly by the people of this location where I'm staying when I go on Pindapat. I'm also even more fortunate that I have the opportunity, whilst I'm walking on Pindapat, to, when there are people, because there aren't so many where I'm staying, there are just a few, but when there are people who clearly are begging for food or money or whatever they're begging for, I'm still able to give them a little bit of that food as I pass them on my way and on the way back. Whether that's quite what we're supposed to do, I don't know, but I don't mind. It's my opportunity to give. I have more than enough for my own meal. And then also the food's distributed, the surplus, as soon as I get back to my kuti, so that some other people who don't have access to so much food get some good food in the morning at least every day from just that activity. It's a very, very small part, but this is also a way of developing wholesome mind states, developing parami, the parami of dana or generosity, giving a little of what we have. Now, of course, as renunciants, monks, we have very little that we can offer. One thing I can offer, not as a teacher or as an intellectual, but what I can offer is my sharing of you, my experiences of this practice in this form we call a monk, a bhikkhu. Because it is the extreme of what is, after all, your practice, but it's what your practice is, if you're practicing Sila, Samadhi, Panya, that is the basis, the foundations for this. And this is where we begin. We can very happily remain in lay life and have a very fruitful practice, have wonderful results through our meditation and develop wisdom, just through keeping the basis, the foundations of Sila, keeping those 5 precepts. Now, to me, I suppose it's easy for me to say, as a monk and having been now in this form for quite some time, it seems to me that that's quite easy to keep, not to kill things, steal, sexual misconduct, lie and take intoxicants. That doesn't seem very difficult, but I do appreciate it isn't always as easy as it might seem to me because my entire existence is supportive of that. This is why we have all these extra rules to support that. And it is on this Uposatha today why we reflect upon those by reciting those 227 rules, but more importantly, mentally reflect on, have we kept SILA today? Have we kept SILA this week, this last 15 days since the last Uposatha? Is there anything I could improve upon? Now, I am continually reminded, not because I'm in breach of a rule, but the tiny little incidental rules that are there in the Vinaya, which are to guide us away from breaking the serious rules, do crop up quite often. And even if, like me, you're unable to recite the entire Patim Moka rule by rule in any language, let alone Pali, even my own, I couldn't just tell you from start to finish what all of the rules are. I still know them in my heart. I've got an idea for them, and when I come across a situation, I'm able to try and direct myself around it. And to some extent, this is what we call restraint. Now, as monks, as I mentioned in a recent talk, that we have to exercise the utmost powers of restraint, because we are fully renunciant in many respects. Just walking down to the beach, I thought, that's a nice spot. There's some flowers out, the sand's there, the sun is a little clouded today, so it would look nice if I sat there. It would be nice for me if I sat there and I could give my talk in that spot. Then I thought, actually, the reason I'm in this same spot is because the beach workers, the people who work in the hotels and look after the beach, have got used to me sitting in this spot. This is a Buddhist country. Monks, ought and ordinarily aren't beach dwellers wandering around the beach, going swimming, playing water sports and volleyballs and such like. That's not the norm. Obviously, it would be in breach of so many of our rules. But they know I come down to this quiet spot, and they help protect my SILA. And they're protecting my SILA by, if, I don't know, something was going on, it would be quite normal and understandable if a couple would come over to talk to me, recognizing that I was foreign, maybe thinking, well, I'm from their same country, and they may be in their shorts and bikinis and this and that, and just come over and ask me some questions. That wouldn't be shocking for me as a Westerner, but it wouldn't be appropriate for a monk to be talking to people in a state of undress. So this is why we don't hang around beaches or places like this. But this place like this that you're seeing is part of it's in my SILA bubble, because I have my, like Hiri and Ottappa, those guardian angels. Hiri and Ottappa, I translate, the simplest way I think of translating these Pali words are, rather than, we don't have this shame and guilt complex in Buddhism, but we guard our SILA, we protect our SILA. And we have these mythical ideas of protective angels, which are just the words Hiri and Ottappa. And we can see them represented in a form outside of some temples of these two kind of guards, bodyguards, if you like, or bouncers, if you like, doormen, to stop unwanted things entering the temple, unwanted acts, thoughts, behaviours, through our seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. Hiri and Ottappa, I translate in my mind a way of thinking as Hiri as conscience and Ottappa as conscience-ness or conscientiousness. So you have a conscience, a base of morality, and you are conscientious to protect that base of morality. This is how I split it. Sometimes it's sort of a wise sense of shame and a shame and guilt, it could be translated as. But I think rather than shame and guilt, because there's no such thing as guilt, it's just a word that we use to describe regret, and it's a useless emotion. But conscientiousness of your conscience not to be mixed up with consciousness and conscience. I'm trying to pronounce clearly for people whom English isn't their mother tongue. I'm not trying to sound patronising, if that makes sense. And also, I can speak too quickly sometimes. So when I'm talking to people who don't speak my language, I'm always saying, try and slow down in the back of my mind. But it is difficult. This is conscientiousness of not speaking too quickly, for instance. So we have conscientiousness about keeping SILA. So these beach guards, these beach staff are my conscientiousness. So I realized quite quickly, no, sit in your correct spot, where I will be protected. And I'm very grateful for that also. Now, this is one of the wonderful things about living as a monk in a Buddhist country and outside of a temple, outside of a monastery in a Buddhist country. This perhaps is not so possible in my own country because I wouldn't be protected. My SILA wouldn't be guarded by others. It would be so only down to me to protect it, which would really mean I'd have to stay within 4 walls and therefore might as well live in the monastery, which is what I would do if I was in England, unless I had call to perhaps go and live and look after my mother if she was ill or something, when we are allowed to live with our mother. Other than that, we don't live in our own home. Where I'm living currently is likewise protected. It's offered to me by local people. It was an empty building. They've made it safe, the environment's safe around me. The neighbours have moved out. I did think maybe that we would have to acquire next door, but they seem okay that nobody's going to go in there. So for now, this is a good enough base whilst it continues to rain every day as heavily as it does at the moment, preventing me from really going anywhere else. But I'm very established and very happy to be in this place. Do we bump into a lady on the bridge, or do we get run over by a bus? This is a thought that went through my mind on the way on Pindabat this morning or the morning before. I was crossing the bridge and there's a high up pavement. If you step down into the road, it's quite a narrow road. It's a busy road. It's the main road from Colombo to Galle. It goes right past my house. You've probably heard the noise of it. But it has to cross the Bentota River, which means it has to go over a bridge. Now the railway line has a separate bridge, fortunately. So there's just this railway crossing and then a bridge. But this means the traffic has to just all plough down the 2 lanes of this bridge. It's not very busy at 6:30 in the morning, just a couple of buses. I don't think it's that busy any time of day, really. But the buses are big and they take up a good part of the room. And as I get onto the bridge, which I should say is a good 100 yards across the Bentota River, at least 100 metres, let's say. I think metres are much the same as yards. I step onto the bridge, and firstly there's the man who's at one end, this end, who's begging on the floor. He's got no legs. So I always make sure I got some buns or something to give him of what I've been offered so far. Get this ready. And then I look ahead. Now I do, because at first I didn't, to see if there's anyone coming along the bridge. Because being respectful of monks, they know the rules. So should I encounter a lady coming the other way on the bridge, then I have to, the logical thing is for me to cross the road to the other side of the bridge. And that's what I do. But on this particular bridge, that's quite difficult to do without stepping under a bus, which is coming along quite fast. And if you haven't looked ahead across the bridge to check the coast is clear for people coming the other way on this narrowish pavement, it's quite a narrow pavement, you see. If a man's coming, that's fine. I brush against the man, that's okay. But a lady would feel very uncomfortable. I'm not being all precious about myself or the rules, not at all. I am being protective of the Sangha and the Vinaya. This is what it's all about, the Sangha and the Vinaya Pitaka, which is the teachings of the Buddha to the Sangha, how they behave. It's never about us. It's never about our SILA. It is about our SILA, personally, but external appearances are about protection of the sanctity of the Sangha. This is how it's remained so well respected for the millennia that it has since the time of the Buddha. So if the lady's coming, then I wait, or I cross the bridge at this opportune moment, rather than halfway across. The other day I hadn't done this, and I'd been giving some food to the man down there, walked across, and the lady was coming, and I thought, well, I can't expect her to jump off the pavement in front of the bus. I'm just going to have to walk in front of the bus. And I thought, well, SILA will protect me. And took that chance. And the bus did have plenty of time to stop. I wasn't causing a potential accident with many passengers on board, don't worry. But you wouldn't ordinarily, you would just as a lay person say, excuse me, or brush past, there's no problem. But as a monk, with a lady coming the other way, then this wasn't a thing that happens. You avoid these situations. And this is conscientiousness of our conscience. This is protecting our SILA. Now, this isn't anything morally wrong I'm talking about, but this is showing you how all of those many Vinaya rules that the monks have are there to help us protect the main rules. Because if I was constantly brushing up against women all day long in society, going to beaches and talking to half-dressed ladies, and I'm not getting into the sexist thing, I'm just talking from a male point of view, then I would not be guarding my sense doors of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. Therefore, I would not be protecting my SILA. Now, it may not lead to anything, it would not lead to anything, I'm sure, but progressively, it does. So progressively, we keep SILA. And it isn't overnight, this change in us. It isn't overnight that you become quite confused as to how it could be possible to kill, steal, commit sexual misconduct, lie, or take intoxicants. That takes time. Now I can say that I cannot see how that can be done. But this is only through a lot of time practicing this way with the protection of all of these Vinaya rules in this monastic form that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of. I didn't see him coming or hear him coming. Maybe you would have noticed him before me. I have to move a little bit because I'm sitting in a funny way on the sand. So this morning, probably a day or so afterwards, I had the wonderful opportunity, by chance, when I turned my YouTube on for my morning chanting, to notice the latest Dharma talk at Chittaviveka. Chittaviveka is the first Buddhist monastery I went, the first real Buddhist monastery I went to. I'd probably visited some, Tibetan temples and things like that in different places in my time. But in terms of purposely going for the purposes of understanding or looking to see what Buddhism was, the first monastery I went to was in West Sussex, not far from where I lived. It'd been there all my life, but I didn't know, because monks are very quiet people. You wouldn't know they're always there. We try to be invisible. But one day, on someone's recommendation, I'd gone to visit this monastery, Chittaviveka, Chithurst Buddhist Monastery in West Sussex. And Chittaviveka means refuge of the cheetah. Viveka is refuge, refuge is about the sanctuary, refuge is about the best description of that word, viveka, and chitta is the cheetah. So we have kaya viveka, chitta viveka. Kaya viveka is like a refuge for the body, so a nice cave to meditate in, or a nice kuti, or the seclusion of a tree is for the body. But for the mind, chitta viveka, it's a little more we need these hirianotupa. We need a secure moral environment. We need to be able to guard our sense doors of windows, sense windows or doors of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. And we learn this from visiting monasteries, seeing monks whom have been doing it for a long time. This is why I'm talking to you, sharing this with you. It's easy to say that it's just keeping SILA. One has to just keep SILA. Very easy to say, but it's very hard to do. I heard someone say also this morning on a talk from another monastery that are saying that a child can understand SILA, but an 80-year-old cannot necessarily keep it, do it. So this is just the 5 precepts, and that is so true, isn't it? But if you are progressively practicing keeping SILA, then you develop these qualities and eventually you are keeping the 5 precepts without even thinking. And one way to help that is by, on occasions, once a week or even just once a month, keeping the 8 precepts, to be that little bit extra supportive of those 5. And what I was able to listen to this morning was the abbot of Cittaviveka, that monastery when I first went there, he was just taking, I think Ajahn Sucitto, it was his last year, and then the year after, once I'd been going there for some time, Ajahn Karunako, a monk of long standing, many vasas, he took over from Ajahn Sucitto. And Ajahn Sucitto, a disciple of Ajahn Sumedho and also Ajahn Chah, so in that lineage of the Thai Forest tradition. And this Cittaviveka is an Ajahn Chah Thai Forest Monastery, the first in England, set up in that form. There was another Vihara in London firstly, Hampstead, and then they moved when they acquired this. It was given to them on Pindapat in a park in London, and a forest, and it's a very beautiful setting, a very beautiful monastery. And this morning, or the other evening, in their Dharma talk, their lunar observance night, Uposatha Dharma talk, Ajahn Karunako was giving the Dharma talk. So it was really delightful for me and a great pleasure to hear his voice, to listen to his words about SILA that I'm kind of repeating now and I've heard many times before. But like a song, a beautiful song from your favourite artist, I have no problems hearing those same words over and over again. You don't think when you listen to a song, I wish they'd just change the words because those lyrics, I've heard them so many times, can we have some new ones? No, because it's a beautiful song that really gets into your heart. And when you hear this kind of Dharma from monks like Ajahn Karunako and Ajahn Sucitto and Ajahn Sumedho and of course Ajahn Chah, then it doesn't really matter what they're saying, because of course it matters what they're saying, but you know what they're saying is just the truth. It's the Dharma, it's the basis of Dharma, it's the foundations that we build our practice upon. And those very foundations are that SILA. And it is of course at this time, twice a month, on full moon and new moon, that we as monks especially want to remind you of that. Now I'm a day late also with my talk here on SILA, but not in what I was doing. This is just the way it comes to be recorded, or me have the opportunity to speak. So it was delightful because I didn't watch it on the video. I saw where he was sitting. I knew that for the rest of the video he wouldn't move, so I was just able to listen to it in the background and sit with my eyes closed in my kuti and listen to his talk. And it was a wonderful experience because sometimes you hear the Dharma and it's just listening to a Dharma talk. Sometimes you hear the Dharma and it truly does a commonly used phrase these days I hear a lot is resonate. Resonance doesn't really have the meaning how I'd like to express it, but I can feel from Ajahn Karunako the all of the 4 Brahma Viharas in listening to him talking of metta, karuna, mudita and equanimity, upekkha. And the specifics of what he was saying aren't so important as how I was hearing it and receiving it through these sense doors, and fully conscientious of what I was hearing, experiencing through my consciousness of this listening exercise. And this is the meditative side of listening to Dharma. It is part of the practice. It is the importance behind listening to Dharma talks. And that has been going on since the time of the Buddha. It isn't a new thing. It hasn't come about because of YouTube. Monks have lots of rules as to how Dharma talks are given, when they're given, whom they're given to, in what forms, how we're there's all kinds of things relating to that in the Vinaya, because it is such an important part of the monk's life and the lay people's life. After all, it's how lay life and monastic life comes together, not only in the dana of lay people giving to the Sangha, but in the dana of the Sangha giving Dharma in terms of teaching or sharing with the lay people. This is the interdependence, the synergy between this fourfold assembly of lay men, lay women, upasakas, upasikas, and monks and nuns, bhikkhus and bhikkhunis. Without those four stable parts to the structure, then the whole thing would be wonky. It would be a wobbly table with a leg missing. It all needs to be there. So that was my Uposatha day, night, a little late and a little spread over a few days. Not living in a monastery and having the fortunate opportunity to be in this situation, to practice in solitude, yet be protected as if I am living in a monastery, having my SILA looked after me not only by myself but by all the people that surround me and look after me so well and so kindly, because they're so appreciative of how monks live. When they ask me, I'll let the train go by, although you can't probably hear it as much as me. People that I see for the first time always ask me which temple, where are you from, which temple, and I say this is my temple, and sometimes they look a bit confused. But this is my temple, Sri Lanka at the moment. But it's the world, it's the universe, is my temple for the time being, because I'm not staying in one particular temple. And it allows me this opportunity to really put my training, my practice so far, into practice, because I am still to some extent having to relate to the outside world. So going on Pindapat, I'm ensuring that without breaking SILA, I'm testing my ability to guard, to protect, to let Hiri and Ottappa use their powers to keep me on the pavement, on the path, but avoiding any obstacles that may come in my way. And this is how we slowly progress towards being that 80-year-old who can keep SILA, rather than just knowing what SILA is. And this is how we progress slowly but surely through our lives of this practice of developing these qualities and developing SILA. So please try, and on the Uposatha days or some day of your choosing, just take an opportunity to keep 8 precepts if you can. But even if you're not doing that, reflection each and every day, just before you go to sleep at night, or just before you meditate, more importantly, before you go to sleep at night, at some point at the end of your day, reflect on the day that's just gone before. It takes a matter of just seconds, that's all, just seconds. Have I broken any precepts today? If you have, say to yourself, yes, I did swat that mosquito, or I did steal that paperclip from the office. End of it. You don't need to feel guilty, you don't need to ruminate about it, you don't really need to address the situation. If it's something serious that warrants an apology somewhere or rectification, You can do that tomorrow. Have a good night's sleep, knowing that you've made that determination to rectify the situation. But other than that, let go, forget it, but make the determination, the adhitthana is the Pali word, the determination not to break that precept tomorrow. And then the same again the following evening. Every night, this reflection. It's a mirror. You'll look in your face every day to check we don't have mirrors as monks, so we can't really do this. But you will look in your mirror every day to check you look okay for work or whatever you're doing, to check you look smart and this, that and the other. Just spend a fraction of that time looking internally and checking your SILA, just as if you check yourself in the reflection of a shop window as you walk by. Be checking your SILA continuously. And by that, you will develop the inability to ever break any of those 5 precepts. And on that point, I hope there's something there that's useful for you. If so, please use it. Otherwise, just let it go and share with others if you feel you can. Thank you for watching.